Hi, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how to disassemble the X95 bolt assembly and the Sear assembly. The book doesn't really clearly demonstrate how to disassemble the Type B bolt, which this is. That does show the Type A, and they're both very different. So I want to show you how to do the Type B. So let's start. And first thing you do is pull this rod, or they call it the bolt control bar, pull it back, and it automatically comes out about an inch, but that's not enough, because when this is all the way forward, it's almost to the front of the carrier. And you see this pin? It's at least an inch and a half. It needs to go back at least an inch and a half past this pin before this pin can come out. So 1 inch is not enough. So you have to keep pulling on it and kind of wiggle it. There it is. Okay. Now measure. Yes, that's about an inch and a half. Okay, now take a punch and push the pin from the right side to the left side. Okay. At the same time, push it all the way through, and this is what the bolt pin looks like. Hold it, and there's a little bit of tension on the bolt because of the firing pin spring. Pull the bolt straight out. Okay. Now, then pull, wiggle the firing pin and the spring out. You could pull this rod all the way out if you wanted to, but you might have to hammer it out all the way back, and I've done it. Okay, as far as this recoil rod and the guide, that is not removable now because it's attached to this metal piece right back here. It's attached, and it doesn't come out by itself, and it's not unscrews. So I think it's not meant to be disassembled, this recoil guide. And matter of fact, I even tried to punch this pin out. Either way, it would not come out, so I wouldn't even try doing that. But you could remove these pieces, and this is very easily to do. You just put them down here, and you get the proper punch, like skinny punch like this, and then just take a hammer. I'm just going to use a mallet and just tap it out like that. Okay. And I'll show you the pin. And that comes out right there. Okay. You need to change this if you're going to change caliber. Now this piece also comes out, and you need to drive this pin out. But this piece does not come out very easily, and I'm not going to try to force it. I tried to unscrew it and pull it out. It just wouldn't come out. So I'm not going to try to force it. But I want to show you what these two pin looks like. They are roll pins. Okay. Okay. Next thing are these. There's two more roll pins on the side of the carrier, on the right side. And they can be easily punched out from the left. Now, what do they do? This is called a general pin, and what it does is it blocks the charging handle rod that goes in left side here, right here. Okay, I guess I'm going to assume it's for switching. Okay, if you're going to switch it to the right side, you'll have to move this general pin to this side. Okay, and that's the same with this thing. This pin is important. It sort of guides it limits the rotation of the bolt. So here I'm going to show you how to remove them. Pretty simple. Again, you just do that and just tap it out. Okay, that comes out right there. And this one comes out. Okay. They're both out now. Okay. This is the general one, and this is the it limits the rotation of the bolt. It's the second one towards the back. Okay. That is it for the carrier. There's nothing more you could strip. Now, by the way, I have a tip for you. If you, let's say this rod is all the way forward and it could only come out an inch, and you try to pull it and it wouldn't come out any further, you need to pull this out as much as 1.5 inches, as little as 1.5 inches. So I have a little tip. Put this, the top part of the buffer, firmly with something solid, and push down on the carrier till the rod protrudes, and just take a mallet and tap it gently till it comes out 1.5 inches, minimum 1.5 inches. So that's the tip, but try to pull it with your hands first, and if you can't, then tap it. Okay, next thing we're going to do is strip the bolt. The bolt has 2 pins. One pin is for the ejector, and these are the 2 chrome ejectors, and this one pin is for the extractor. Now, the ejector pin is so tiny, I don't have a punch for it, so I'm not going to bother trying to remove the ejector, but it's very simple. If you could just punch out that skinny little pin, then the ejector should come out and there should be 2 springs behind it. As far as the extractor goes, I'll have to push out the pin, and it's pretty simple. Just take a skinny punch and just punch out the extractor pin. Like that. Okay, and this is what the extractor pin looks like. I'll put it right here, and I will now carefully remove the punch, and here comes the extractor. Now, if you were expecting an extractor spring, well, you would be surprised it's not a spring, because I certainly was when I first did this. It's like a buffer spring. It's hard rubber, green hard rubber, and that's all it is. There's nothing else in here, and that acts like a extractor spring. What a surprise. This is the first time I ever removed an extractor that didn't have a spring. Wow. Okay, so that's it. That's all you need to do regarding the X95 bolt. Now, what I'm going to do is reassemble all these pieces back into the carrier. And the first thing that goes back in would be these roll pins, these small ones, and there's one right here. Okay, the general pin and the rotation bit pin. So I'm gonna have to put them in, and basically you just tap them in like this, and like that. Okay, I'm going to use a regular hammer and be gentle about it. That's it. Next would be this one. Okay. Flatten that a little later. Next is this. Okay. Okay. Next will be the assembly of the bolt. I'm going to put the buffer-like extractor spring. And you can see the extractor is not exactly flat. Now I need to make this flat, otherwise I'm going to have a hard time putting it in. So I'm going to use the vise to my advantage. I'm going to set it in here. I'm going to clamp it down. Okay. Now I'm going to take the extractor pin and place it in the hole. Okay. Nope, came out too far. Good. Now test it out. Make sure the extractor works by pushing up on the extractor and make sure it bounces back. Now when you if you put back the ejector again, you can test it by pressing on the ejector. Actually, and I'm not so sure that there is a spring behind the ejectors now, after seeing what happened to the extractor. So I actually don't know what's behind the ejectors. So I assume it's a spring, but I never know. Okay, so next is now I'm going to put the bolt back into the carrier. And the first thing that goes in is put the spring into the firing pin. Hold the tip of the firing pin with this flat side facing up. Okay, slide it in like this and make sure that there's a ridge that sits between these two lower area. Okay, and I'll show you what the ridge looks like. And the ridge is right here. Okay, there's a raised area and it's right there. This is the ridge. Now you need to put the ridge between this, put the ridge right here. Okay, hold this flat area up, slide it in to the carrier. Okay, and then there, it should sit there like that with the firing pin facing out. Next, I would put the bolt in gently, and I will then put the pin. Now this pin, it's round, but there's a flat section that faces towards the back. Okay, put a little pressure on the pin, and then okay, I'm going to double check to make sure the firing pin has not moved out of position, and then I'll push this bolt in. Rotate it if you have to. At the same time, I'm putting my thumb putting pressure on the there you go, and check the firing pin, the flat area is still facing up, and it is. And now you straighten this pin, make sure it's flat, and it is now. Make sure the bolt rotates as it pushed backwards, and it is. And so now that's it. That's oh, one more thing. Push this back in. There. That's it. That's disassembly and reassembly of the X95 bolt. Next is the Sear assembly. Okay, make sure the tension is released, and the way to do that is to pull on this left side. Okay, this is where the connector or link hooks up to, and you push that forward, and the hammer should be released. Push this forward, and the hammer should be released. Okay. Okay, the first thing you do, even this has a little slot, this pin has a slot on it, it's actually not a screw. Okay, so you get yourself a punch, the same size punch. Now punch it, push it from the right to the left, and basically this punch will take on some of the pressure when the pin is released. Push it like this, from right to left. As you can see, the pin is coming out. Push it some more. There. This is what the pin looks like. Okay. It's a solid pin with a slot in it. Looks like a screw, but it's not. Okay. Okay, now I'm going to pull the punch out. Hold on to the hammer and gently pull the punch out. Okay. Now lift up, watch how the position of the spring is. Now you can remove the spring from the hammer, and you just pull it to the one side, doesn't matter which side. Okay, that's it. Just put that there. Next is the actual Sear itself. Now again, you have another pin. I'm going to push it from the left to right. Again, it's spring loaded. It's not as hard as the hammer spring, but it still is. So when you slide that pin from left to right, it'll come through. If you can't, use a hammer and tap it. Okay. Use a different punch. Seem to be caught. I'm going to have to tap it out a little bit. There it is. And this is what the pin looks like. Has two small grooves on either side. Okay. Now I'm going to remove the punch. Hold on to it, make sure, yep, and then just wiggle the Sear out. There is a spring on the left side, and it just lifts up like this. Okay, there's a little groove for the top part of the spring, like right there. See, it sits on. So even if you're mistaken it, like this, it doesn't go like this. It goes like this. Okay. Next, you have this chrome sleeve actually, and the back part of the Sear is spring loaded with a pin guide, so you need to push that sleeve from the right side to the left side. Now again, I could just use one of these and making sure I got some pressure, and there it is. Now I can just wiggle the sleeve out. The nice thing using a punch is that it replaces the sleeve so it doesn't bounce around or fall apart. Okay, that's your sleeve. Okay, now I'm going to take this apart after observing what it looks like, you know, how things go, and here it is. That's it. Okay, that's your disassembly of the Sear housing. Okay, now let's put her back. Put this Sear spring back like this. Okay, you need to see that round ball that's on top of the pin. That goes into the spring. Spring gets seated in this place right here in the back. Then take this piece right here and just, yeah, see, it sits right into that slot right there. So just sit it like that. Now make sure this whole piece stays up above. All you need to do is now use pressure on the back of this thing and make sure it holds like this and clears, that you clear, there it is, it goes in, and that's it. Yep. Pressing that down, make sure everything is clear, and this front part is on the upside and not underneath. Okay, so that piece is all done. Now I need to put this back in, and to do that I need to again put this spring back in. Now remember how it goes. It goes like this, and the top of the spring get hooked onto the top of this connector piece. Okay, and then hold it like this, and then slide it in. Okay, like this, like that. Make sure the spring is forward. Okay, now I'm going to use this punch, slide it in, make sure it's all the way across, hold it steady. Okay, change the punch to another punch, goes in like this. Okay, because this would be straighter, and then replace the thicker punch with the pin, following it. Okay, you can see it. You can see. Okay. Okay, I'm in. Okay, now that's in. Next, I got to put the spring in. Remember, this goes like this. Pretty straightforward. And now I got to make sure that these springs are facing downwards. Okay, like that. You hook them downwards like this. While this is facing all the way down, now you got to push it where the access hole is, and now you can feel the pressure. Now again, I'm going to use this punch and go all the way across. It always helps. Okay. Now I'm going to hold it steady. I'm going to replace it again with this punch. Actually, I'm going to push it through this hole. Okay. And push it through this hole, and then now this. Okay. Now I'm going to put this cross pin. Remember, there's a slot in there. Now I'm going to slowly replace that punch with this pin. Now because there's a lot of stress. Okay. Yep, there it is. Now slowly with your thumb push that pin through, while at the same token pull the punch out, and now you have to push the pin all the way through. Not really that simple. There. Test it, and I'll pull on the Sear. Yeah, it works. Great. So there you have it. This is how you disassemble and reassemble the bolt assembly and the Sear assembly for the X95. Thank you very much for joining me. Please subscribe.